Hey guys, I'm Brittany,
I'm Maria.
and this is the Be More podcast. And you might be thinking to yourself, hey, I just heard something that was different than what usually happens in the beginning of these episodes, and you are 100% correct.
Yeah,
We
it's a
now
longer it's a longer intro.
and it's like specifically designed for us by our
Yes.
amazing friend Andrew from the Andrew Kavanagh Music.
Clap it
I'm
out.
gonna say that
Clap it
wrong.
out for
Sorry, Andy,
Andy.
if I just did that. Wait, let me double check.
He was on a previous
Oh,
episode
it's
on here.
from the Kavanagh Music Company, but it's
There
from
we
our
go.
friend Andrew Kavanagh, who created the Kavanagh Music Company.
There you go.
There
Took
we
you
go.
a
Sorry, it
second.
took me a second. I'll get better at doing it because now every week we're going to talk about Andy and his amazing musical accompaniment that he created for us.
Yes, and all his info is down below in the description. So if for some reason you need a podcast intro outro situation, yeah, reach out to Andy.
And Andrew was on our podcast in previous episodes. He came on and
Yes.
talked about his work as a music therapist. So if you're
Mhm.
interested in anything in that field, we learned a lot in that episode and nerded out a lot about music and sounds.
Yep.
Definitely go back and check that out. Angie, thank you. You are the
Yes.
best. Love you.
Thank
And thank
you.
you for dealing with us through this process because, guys, making music is a process. And Maria and I were talking about how absolutely awesome it was that, like, what Andrew made for us very well embodies who we
What this
are
is. Yeah.
and, like, the sound that would be us if we were just a bunch of instruments, mostly the bass and the drum.
Yeah, and like the process was cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, the work in progress and like all that stuff. So Andy did a really great job from beginning to
If I
end.
remember
The the
correctly,
the
he made
transition was ridiculous.
he made the analogy initially to us like, I'm just gonna throw some spaghetti at the wall and see where
Yeah,
it
and see
lands,
what
and then
sticks.
we can make something nice out of whatever is left on the wall. And that's exactly what he did. I don't know how.
Sounds like our podcast.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly. It sounds like our podcast. We mean well, and all the nutrients that you need are in that spaghetti pasta that gets thrown at the wall. It's just whatever sticks after, sticks after. So thank you for
Literally.
joining us. And Maria just brought to my attention that we're marking two. Was it really in January? I thought it was like in March that we started. Was it really two?
Yeah, so it is 2 years. I have because me and Brittany have a Word doc or a Google Doc. Our first
Ah,
episode was and I put the upload dates for a reason.
that's,
The
yep.
upload date of the first episode was February 4th. And this is gonna come
Wow.
out February 1st. So
That's
close enough.
crazy.
Yeah. And like I can't believe it's been 2 years.
I'm just happy that we've been so consistent as we were
Yeah,
have
yeah.
been, because that was our biggest thing with wanting to get it launched in the first place, was just the worry about consistency. But it honestly, it's so funny how it's really just turned into a modern way for us to do what we used to do growing up. Because in all reality, guys, on the weekends, or like the weekends were the only time, like weekend mornings and like afternoons were the only times that I was ever home. And I would always just end up wandering over to Maria's house, and we would just like sit somewhere and like either like play on the piano, or she tried to teach me how to play video games, or like we were just sitting doing like majority of what we
Yeah.
do right now and having conversations. So it's just been like a an adulting
Extension.
way for us to, yeah, extend that experience, which is super cool.
Yeah. I think yeah, the consistency was the one thing, but also I think once we fell into a routine, it was just like, yeah, we're podcasting at on Sundays at like noon. Like that's
Yeah.
it's just a part of my weekly routine now. So
Yep.
but
It
yeah,
is
crazy.
possible, especially because it just came from a very tiny idea. And please note that, like, 2 years, like, yay, we have a long way to go.
Uh-huh.
But this is also a good practice for me because I don't celebrate things that I've done
You don't.
well.
You
Well,
don't.
I don't. I'm really bad, apparently. I work with a like an amazing coach who I work with for my BCA business. And oh my Lanta, when you're so used to like looking ahead and moving on to the next thing and like checking things off of your to-do
Yeah.
list and things like that, you get very caught up in moving forward, and then you don't celebrate the fact that you've already done stuff.
Mm-hmm.
um and a lot of my issue with life is in doing that. I'm always so like, what's next, moving ahead, and so obsessed with like the growth that I can lose sight of and I only do it with myself. I'm so good at celebrating everybody else's like littlest achievements and like especially when I'm working with like students and things like that. But I don't know. We've talked about this, my lack of being content
Yeah.
with where I am. So thank you for bringing this up because now we can celebrate the fact that we freaking did it for 2 years, dude.
Yeah, and we're still here. We're still around. So I
We're
think
still doing it. And it's just
yeah,
getting better. Podcasting, like,
there's a learning curve to this, y'all. There's
yeah.
a learning curve. I mean, 2 years and we now officially have like an intro outro. So like,
Yeah.
it's literally just a work in progress every single year.
And it's so hard. I feel like the podcast world just like blew up.
Exploded during the
Yeah.
pandemic.
And so many people started a podcast, and it can be really hard in the world of having like comparing and like
Yeah.
looking at your journey and other journeys and like by all means, like Maria and I don't come on here and we're like, we are the best resource in knowing all things about blah blah blah. Like we're not. We're just fumbling through. And as I've seen a lot of reels lately that are about the upcoming millennial 30-year-olds that are all like have you seen that reel that's like, so are we supposed to know what we're doing? Oh no, okay, cool. I've seen so many of
I've
those
seen
reels
variations of it, yeah.
that are like very much around people that are our age. So I feel like this podcast is just a proof of celebrating the fact that like we don't really know what we're doing and we're just kind of bumbling through it, and we still moved 2 years ahead, and we now have some music.
We have this. Yeah, no, I think seriously, like I feel like all those reels and TikToks are literally no one knows what the hell they're doing.
Yep.
Especially in the world of podcasts, like our idea is very simple, and like I feel like that's every other podcast. You know what I'm saying? So like there's a lot of podcasts out there doing the same thing just in different narratives. And we just do this
experiences.
Yeah, and we just do this for our own fun. At the end of the day, I think that's what make podcasts that are successful is that, and like longevity is that they're just doing it for fun and not like for the views or anything. So yeah, that's what we're gonna continue to do, honestly.
The whole point of our podcast, and we struggled so much, we've talked about this before, like we struggled so much with what we were gonna name it and like what our intention was behind it and all of this stuff. And like honestly, none of that really mattered. It was just about the two of us like coming with our experiences and wanting to have a conversation and wanting to invite other people into that conversation. And was it an easy thing for us? No. It wasn't awkward as hell. Yeah. Are we both more comfortable just doing it now? I feel like for me, it just feels like we're having a conversation on Zoom. Like, and then I remember other people are potentially going to be listening to it, and I'm like, okay.
Well, this is why post edit, I have to edit some things out, whatever we say, just in case. So there's always that post edit situation. But no, I mean, with anything with time, it just feels like in the beginning it was so fucking awkward.
Oh, yeah.
I hated every not hated, but I was just like, wow, I could be doing something else with my time. But now I'm like, yeah, I'm podcasting. No one bothered me for 2 hours.
I don't remember to like what area of content this was and how I took this in, but I remember recently having had conversations around confidence with people, and then I think it was a quote or something that I saw that was talking about, and then I've have experiences like this that now are examples of the truth of this fact, but we get this misunderstanding that, and I used to live by this misunderstanding that like confidence is something that it's something that you kind of wear almost, like it's like putting on a t-shirt or put it like you wear your confidence,
right?
And that if you don't have it in your closet, right, you can't wear it, so to speak. But I'm just now started, and then you need to put on the jacket in order to walk into the certain arena, right, to have a certain type of experience that makes you feel confident. But I'm now starting to learn that we all have confidence like inside of us. It's not something you need to wear, it's just something you need to bring to the surface. And what's challenging about it is that you don't build it and the fire doesn't get stronger and burn brighter inside of you until you actually do the actions that help fuel it. So like confidence isn't something that you can just have and purchase and put on and be like, haha. It's something that you have to build by doing. You have to take action to build confidence in something, to feel like you understand what you're doing, like you I can't think of the word, like to edify yourself. Like you need to
Yeah.
have the experience behind you to build the confidence. You don't just get confidence. And my biggest issue in so much of my life is that I got a lot of confidence
Mm-hmm.
from feeling like, oh, I have it, or I have a reason to be confident, instead of actually going through and having the experiences to support my. So like I had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of false confidence.
Yeah, you kind of faked it.
Yeah, I'm super good at faking it. But I mean, I also, to understand like where that comes from, I was in the performing arts, right?
Yeah.
I'm really good at faking. Like I can fake it.
Yeah,
And
you kind of had to do it.
yeah, it's the dangers and part of the reasons why I deal with the mental demons that I deal with. But like, just because I can do that doesn't mean I had real confidence and I didn't know the difference.
Yeah.
But being able to do this podcast along with a lot of other shit that's going on in my life,
Mm-hmm.
I've built a lot of that confidence. And now I can really say, and I still have moments that I'm like, I have none in this moment right now because my fire has been squashed. Or
Yeah.
like I've never done something like this, like whatever I'm going to do before. So I don't have the confidence yet because I've never taken action like this before. But this podcast is a perfect example of how I've been able to build confidence,
Yeah.
especially around the areas of talking about like mental health and like
Yeah.
real life
Stuff.
shit.
Yeah. It's just another form of like public speaking. We don't, I
Yeah,
mean, like everyone hates public speaking, but I mean, same here. Like the more times you do it, yes, you still get nervous. Yes, it's still nerve wracking and like you hate it. But like once you go through it, it's like, oh, it's just like another task that I have to do to be a human.
for
Just
sure.
like with like this, it's just like in the beginning, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. I'm not that exciting to listen to, but I mean, clearly 80 episodes in, we're still someone's still listening,
Yeah. And I
you know?
think that too, it's been on a not like self development level.
Yeah.
I handle myself better, not like you said, not only in a public speaking situation in person, but we have to, our world is a lot of Zoom calls now. Our world's a lot
Yeah.
of virtual stuff now. And
Yeah.
I know how to conduct myself and feel really, I feel confident speaking in a Zoom call, or like having to have like present myself and make sure that you can see
Hmm.
me and you can hear me and doing all of that stuff because we do it here consistently every week.
Right. That's
Um,
true too.
and that, like you said, that skill set is transferable. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying like if you're somebody who has to give presentations at work on Zoom, like start a podcast. Like I'm not saying
No,
that.
that's not it.
But like if you look at it, the baseline of what Maria and I do is we sit here and we have conversations with friends and friends of friends, and it's just a
Hmm.
very social situation. It's very laid back and social, but the skills that you're building in communication are still transferable to other areas of your life.
Correct. Yeah. A
So
100%.
I've definitely seen that too in places where there are people who I know who do a lot more Zoom calls than me, but because there's always an air of professionalism over them,
Hmm.
there's no sense of like the personability is lacking. Um,
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
and like the ability to command the room is there, but then they get boring. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's
it's literally just like stagnant, just
personality.
like, just like going
Yeah.
through the motions of
And I'm
whatever
sure that
agenda.
now anybody who works from home experiences that stuff where you're like, you could have wrote this to me in an email. Um,
Hmm.
but or not said anything at all. But
Exactly.
there's more, and I think that's a good thing to note too.
Hmm.
Whatever thing you are doing, or whatever, little side activity, hobby, whatever, your skills are transferable.
Yep.
Um, and especially with communication, we need more people who can communicate ideas and like
Hmm.
have communication skills
Yeah, just in
in the
general.
world that we live in. It doesn't have to go away because of technology. If anything, we need to know how to hone in those skills more.
Agreed. Especially in this day and age of the pandemic where things are still virtual, like it is harder to command a room. I've seen it every so often with every meeting that I have. It's like it's a big meeting, someone's talking, everyone else is doing other things. As opposed to like in person, like,
Yeah.
you can't get away with that if you're all sitting in conference room, you know?
Oh
Um
God.
oh, so this definitely helped me for sure.
Yeah.
Especially with presentations at work and just like even like presentations and events at my Filipino American uh community, with
Mm.
all that stuff. So um so yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to even say.
Honestly, you want to know
It's
what's
just
so funny
like
is
just a crazy growth, honestly.
like just dawned on me too. We didn't intend, like Maria and I didn't intend to not be in person together when we were doing this.
No, we literally
Like our
started this
first couple
out in
episodes are,
person. There are a few episodes here and there that are in person,
and
and
now
I
it's
feel
just
like those are
become.
more awkward.
I honestly, yeah, that's because it's just us. But like, and we want to like, we're not saying that we don't want to go back to doing stuff together or in person. And like,
Yeah,
there are little parts of like little ideas that I had rolling on in my mind that I've shared with Maria about like little like specialty episodes that we
yeah,
could be doing on different feature things, and we can do
right,
them together. But it's just, I think that the convenience of being able to do it on Zoom has helped us with the consistency, especially with the
correct.
case of a schedule that I have and you have during busy season. Like
Yeah,
that's been really helpful, but we didn't intend to have to do it like this. So that was another thing too, right? Like we were like, oh yeah, we're gonna do a podcast, and we got everything going to do it in person. And then we were like, oh, wait a second.
yeah, and like
We
the
can't.
funniest thing is like the beginnings of COVID. Like it's crazy to like listen back to those episodes if people want to like listen to like the first few episodes of COVID. Um, we brought on like our first guest like during COVID. Like
Yep.
it was like a 6-7 way Zoom call,
Yep.
the most we've ever had, and it was like maybe episode 5 or something. It was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like we were just starting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But
It
and
was
that's
wild.
that's another thing too that I've been taking a lot of perspective on is that
Hmm.
not not celebrating your like doing things is one thing, but when you add on the fact of like I did this during a global pandemic, you have a little more like a grace
And
with yourself to be like, wow,
yeah,
this is an accomplishment.
like yeah, like no, this was like at the height of COVID anxiety, COVID like I don't know what the hell is happening situation. We like had a
Yeah,
podcast, like we actually did shit during the pandemic, which I mean is a
yeah.
feat in itself because like we were not mentally
Nope.
sane, honestly.
And I think that that's something that we try to definitely be true to through. I mean, if you go back and listen to a couple episodes, like we definitely show up wherever we are, just like
Like
in life,
half
you show up
half
wherever
the
you
time
are.
I feel like I show up and I'm like, "Ah, it is what it is."
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we still have the intention of
having conversation.
yeah, and like having it's a it's a vehicle to move yourself forward from
Hmm.
wherever. And I think that's really like the idea of our title be more is not about like the fact that you're not enough, right? Because and as somebody who struggles with
Hmm.
that as a complex, um I really think that's something that we have to emphasize. Like I want to just emphasize
Hmm.
the point behind our podcast is what we are saying, right? It's a way to move forward,
Right.
and by moving forward you're doing something to be more than you are right now.
Hmm.
So I put a picture I don't remember where I read this from. I've taken stuff from I'm every single day I'm like reading books, I'm listening to talks, I'm on social, like I don't remember where I get stuff from. But I was reading about this analogy about every single day you have the choice to be a banana.
Sure.
You can either be choosing to be in the process of like ripening yourself as a banana or rotting as a banana,
Oh,
right? But a banana's always moving forward,
yeah,
right? A
yeah.
banana's either doing one or the two until it, but it's still like that's like anything with like being biodegradable and disintegration and all that stuff. Like, so I literally made like a little. I'll share it one day. I on our social. I made like this little sign that says ripening or rotting with like the banana in like different stages, and I put it above our sink in the kitchen
Hmm.
because life is going to move forward anyway,
Correct.
right? So the only thing that you get to control is what action you take in that movement forward. And sometimes you might have, a day that, you feel like there's a little rotten going on, and that's fine. But like, if more of your days are you moving towards ripening, then you are working on being more and you are moving forward. And that's like my perspective of what this podcast is, no matter how you show up or where you are when you show up. Like,
Hmm.
the progression happens and you can do something about the result of that progression.
Yeah, you have to take control of your own life trajectory. Is
Mm-hmm.
also like a mentality that I just
Yeah,
have.
for
Um,
sure.
And like the pandemic was difficult for all of us. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure there's no one on this earth that hasn't been affected by the pandemic in any which way. And the fact that we did this and continue to do this is just like it's seriously just a feat in itself. Like
Yeah,
the creative process during a pandemic is probably so strained just because you're just trying to survive.
for
That the fact
sure.
that we just did this just for our own sanity is just amazing, honestly.
Yeah. And that's like the the growth that the two of us have had, and there's been stuff over the last 2 years between like stuff that I experienced with family
Mm-hmm.
and just like personal stuff. I
Yeah,
hit probably some of the lowest lows that
yeah,
I've hit,
yeah.
along with and a COVID, but like also still experiencing some of the highest highs. But if I mean nothing in terms of you relating or making comparisons to
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you're with yourself to us by any means, but just for us to be able to be an example of the fact that life is hard and you got to keep moving. And for
Life
I
is
mean
hard.
speaking for myself, and like, and I know you said this too before, Maria, like this podcast has been something that's been beneficial to us, because that's the other side of it too, right? If you go into doing something consistently and you have a goal and you have a desire and a drive, but as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that like I'm talking to myself right now too. But if you realize that it's not something that's beneficial for you, right? Like you have to, or it's not serving you in some way, you have to know to let it go. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we've had weeks where both of us are like, all right, I'm not in it, right?
Yeah.
Like, or we're like, we got to skip this week, because it is, you're allowed to make space for that too. It's just that you have to feel comfortable enough in what you're working on to make that space. That's been my, it's really weird. I was driving. I'm like really bouncing all over the place today, guys. Sorry. I was driving and I've never seen anybody do this before, but in the back window of someone's car, you know how when you walk into like Home Goods or Michael's,
Mm-hmm.
they have like the like little like letters on a plaque, like they're like the cutout letters on like one plaque that you can put
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes.
So someone had the word grace in their
Okay.
back seat.
Huh.
And I've been hearing like, give yourself grace, give yourself grace, give your like,
Mm-hmm.
God, don't give myself any graces. So like my thing for this year, it's like I wrote in a post-it that's by my desk, is make space for grace.
Oh,
And that's like a hashtag COVID life, but also like a,
personal.
yeah,
Yeah.
to not be so damn hard on yourself.
It's very difficult to unlearn that though. I
Oh my
mean,
God, it's so
duh,
hard.
obviously. But
Expectations are the worst.
expectations, external expectations, but also the internal ones that you make for yourself are the hardest to
Oh yeah.
outgrow because
Especially when
that
they're influenced by the external expectations of other people and you don't realize that they were built on that.
right, and it's also rooted in just like whatever trauma that you had in earlier in life and you just don't know how to fix it. But I think the pandemic has taught me to like not be always 100, like you can't be at 100% all the time. That's one of the things I also learned in
So
therapy when
glad
I went
that
to
you've
therapy.
learned that. I am
Yeah.
in process on my learning. Remember that whole thing that you said about learning curves? They
Yeah.
in your mindset.
Yeah, like it's just human to obviously not function at 100% all the time. It's literally one of the first things that I learned in therapy and I've continued to digest, but I finally understand. Um but just going back to like not having consistent weekly, like yes, our goal is consistently weekly just like uploading stuff, but like if one of us is having an issue, who's gonna like what pressure is like really
Yeah.
like what's pressuring us to like consistently post weekly? Like it's just us.
Mm-hmm.
So like to even just like break that and like have like random weeks where we're off, like a string of weeks where we're off and we're just like forgiving of ourselves is like a step up from when we were children. So
And honestly, it's a step up for me every time we do it, right? And we've
yeah.
talked about this on the podcast before too. When I don't, if I make a commitment to something, if I have to
Mm-hmm.
step away from that commitment for any reason, even this morning when I was telling my clients like I can't work in person and I had to do things virtually, like that was an issue for me. So doing this has also made, right, like made space for me to be graceful in the fact that I can
Mm-hmm.
say like, you can adjust what you said, right? Like
Yeah.
And I get this weird, I remember hearing a lot from different places, like, you made a commitment, you have to stick to it, or like your
That's
word
so
is the
old
only
school now, I
thing,
feel like. Yeah,
your
your
word is
word
the
is
only thing you have, like you can't go back on your word. And it's like,
says
but
who?
what? But the person that I am, I totally, there are moments, I like we talk about this all the time, that it's so relative to the experience. There are
Mm-hmm.
moments where I'm like, you're not going to learn how to develop a tough mindset or a persevere mindset, or like you're not going to grow in anything if you're like, oh, this is too hard, I back out. Like, I understand in that realm, like, you committed to something, like, do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I respect my parents for having my brother and I do that, because it it sets a very good boundary for you to understand that shit takes work, and just because shit's
Mm-hmm.
hard doesn't mean you can bow out. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
But the extent that that got pushed in like the performing arts world and even the academic world, like, then you start to, especially if you're dealing with somebody who's an empath and somebody who feels like they need to be in service of others,
Yeah.
I stopped thinking about myself and
Mm-hmm.
only put other people's like considerations of how other people would feel in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And that made it a black hole for me. So, like, I get the whole, it's like such a moment by moment thing, but like, it's been really good for me doing this, because we hold each other accountable to stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
like, you being able to work with you and having you be my friend, but also be somebody that we do this in a structured setting with,
Yeah.
it's helped me to be able to like streamline the fact that like, oh well, I nothing, the world doesn't end and she's not mad at me, and like nothing goes bad, and like,
Yeah.
I can like take that and put it into like, well, then why don't I do that anywhere else, and like put
Literally.
this into other things. So it's crazy how I'm happy we're talking about this, because for
Uh-huh.
listeners, it might seem like, oh, they just show up and like have conversations about shit and talk for 40 minutes and like whatever. But there's a lot that's gone on, and the ways that it's benefited the both of us to be able to do this. And I really hope that other people are seeing the benefit. And if you're somebody who has gotten anything from it and you haven't reached out to us, we would love to hear from you, because
Yeah.
that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I mean, it helps that we're friends first. Like
You
if
want
we
to know
just
what's so
go
funny?
ahead.
Wait, no, kiddo, finish your thought, and then I want to tell
No.
you my story.
No, it just helps that we're friends first, obviously, because like if we do have to skip a week, or if like the topic is like, something that maybe we don't want to talk about, but like you brought it up or I brought it up, it's just like there's no literally hard feelings anywhere. It's literally just like,
No,
okay, we can talk about it
for
another
real.
time. Or like, okay, we can schedule for, later in the week or whatever. Like it's not.
Oh yeah.
And again, that should translate to other parts of your life. I'm really talking to you.
But I know.
Because like same, every time in every professional setting or anything that has to do with some like profession or like career growth, side hustle thing, whatever, there's literally no hard feelings, because I know going in it's for whatever project or job I'm doing, and not for the personality of the person I'm dealing
But
with.
see, like, that's the difference between the professional environments that have been
Hmm.
established in the systems that
Yeah.
exist versus the way real life relationships
Yeah.
work. Like, we are friends first, and that
Hmm.
friendship means that there's an existing level of trust, there's an
Correct. Yeah.
existing level of respect, there's existing levels of like understanding and knowing each other. And like, honestly, like, aside from our communication skills and being able to talk to one another, like the trust part and the respect part are foundational to any
Hmm.
relationship. And in a professional setting, so much of that isn't the first thing that's
Yeah.
developed. That's the first thing you develop in a friendship. It's like either you do that work or nothing else
Yeah.
happens. And there's none of that. And that's also why when it comes to like having friends, you date in friendships too. Like, you figure
Oh
out
yeah.
who's going to be the person. And that, I mean, we'll talk about being scarred by those experiences. We don't do that first. It makes space for not comfortable things to happen.
Hmm.
And in the professional environments, we don't do that. Like, nothing's about doing that first. It's like, oh, let's do a really tiny little trial, and you're going to sign a piece of paper. And if I decide I
That's
want to give you
true.
a pink slip, then like, there's no,
That's true. And like
not enough. relationship building.
And
It's
it's
just about
funny the way that you just said that. Like, I do the opposite. Where if I have a new staff or if I have someone I'm working with, I tend to have a relationship with them, like a friendly one,
mm,
because then that does build the trust and the respect, right? In both
for
ways, up
sure.
and down. Like, if I'm reaching out to a boss or whatever just to have a relationship with them, like that clearly they can trust me and respect me. Same thing if
Oh
I
yeah.
go reach out to like a level 1 staff, like, okay, then that's, and then when it becomes work time, then I can be like, this has nothing to do with you as a person. I'm either being a boss or being a your some,
Yeah.
whoever,
And
and it just gets
ugh,
shit more efficiently done.
that's exactly why it's the same thing goes for being in a teaching role, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to have a relationship there. But I know for a fact that this is why Dan struggled so much with being in like leadership and management in a corporate setting, because like I'm so happy to hear that you do that, but not like the
Not
old
everyone
school
does.
not to do that. So
Not everyone
most
does.
people who have been in positions for a long time who are higher up the pyramid or
Yeah,
chain don't
whatever.
necessarily do that. So for him it was really frustrating because he would have somebody who was like two bosses up from him
Yeah.
would walk in and like tell him all of like give him all this grunt work and like tell him to change things, and like he'd be like, dude, you don't even know my first name, like who the hell are you?
Yeah.
And he made it a point to make sure that whether it was up or down or whoever he worked with, that there was a relationship there, and that's
Hmm.
why he had the community of people that worked with him and for him that he had, because relationships matter.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
it's so funny that we and Dan and I were literally just talking about this like yesterday, because we had a meeting for like we I'm a very different person when it comes to like business that I am as just like
A friend
what
or
you would
something.
yeah, like I
I
like,
mean,
and you
yeah.
see that too, right? Like when we're
Yeah.
in places where we're organizing things, like it's honestly, it works really better for you because you have a friendship with me, but like we've never been like affectionate and overly affectionate with one another.
No.
So like you don't expect that from me, right? Or like if and I'm gonna tell you the truth and I'm gonna say, because you do this, like we are on the same level when it
We're on
comes.
the same wavelength with this. Yeah.
So I literally told my husband yesterday that like the two of us having a business and me being his business partner is the worst thing. It honestly really is, because and it's only now because we're going through like the trials and tribulations, like you don't know what I'm like as a business person. Like you don't know what I'm like as a professional. Like I am a hard ass. Like I am very detail oriented. I'm super organized. Like I we
Yeah.
have a great relationship. Like I love you, but like I also, because we have that relationship and I know him well,
Hmm.
when things get uncomfortable, I hold that shit right up to him, because I know, and I expect him to do it to me too, because I know if that's going to get in the way for our business, just like things could get in the way for our relationship, we need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Specifically, he needs to deal with it, or I need to deal with my shit. So, like, I told him in moments when like if we just had a conversation about like the cat, or we just had a conversation about anything else in life, and then we turn around and have to have a meeting, and like you don't know how to switch lenses to look at me as like
A
this is
business
bossy
partner.
Brittany versus
Yeah.
like yeah like bossy business partner Brittany versus like this is my wife and my life partner who like I crack jokes about with like
Hmm.
constantly. It's confusing
Right. Yeah.
because that relationship is like, it's also like the opposite of going from like you being very friendly and then having to switch gears. There's a weird transition point, but the
Yeah.
more that you know one another and the more you talk outright about those things, whether you're going from not professional to professional or professional to not professional, whatever, there has to be open conversation with it. And I really truly believe, I think that this podcast is totally like talks to that.
Hmm.
The people that you have friendships and really good relationships with are the best people to get into some type of like structured
Something.
businessy professional setting,
Yeah.
something with, because you can have those complicated conversations, or you can give each other the space that they need to deal with stuff. You get the best of both worlds, but only if you truly understand,
Communicate.
right, and do that stuff. And that's why it's hard to, if it's too close and like it's, you and I don't live together. So like there's no, you know what I mean? Like we
Great.
do
Yeah.
have certain buckets that we fill in. It's hard to work with your
Yeah.
partner because there are a lot of roles that we take on for one another. So like lines blur.
Hmm.
But it's like the relationship matters. Like at we'll have a conversation and I'll make him get really uncomfortable and deal with stuff that I know he doesn't want to deal with because you know how I am as a person. And like we are better afterwards
Mm-hmm.
because like I can push you or talk to you in a way that if you were working with somebody else, they wouldn't know what the issue was, right? Like if he gets frustrated about something or I get frustrated about something, I know him well enough to know that there's something going on behind it, right? Like what you said about like the verse, like it's not personal,
Yeah,
like or business.
it's
Like
not. Yeah.
sometimes it's just as important as like knowing that it is personal, it's not business.
Mm-hmm.
So like things that are going on behind the way people are feeling. So I don't know, relationships are super complicated and super important, but
It's the
this,
communication at the end of the day, isn't that? Because like there's always those horror stories that everyone on the internet says like don't go into a business with your friends, your close friends, your partners, whatever. It's going to turn messy. I just think that that's not right to say outright because it can. It clearly it we're doing this. You and Dan are doing this.
yeah,
Like it's possible. It's just people don't know how to communicate, and that's just like
yeah,
an overall human thing.
and there has to be,
There has to be some separation. There's like different hats that you wear every day anyway. Like there's you personally, like just you to the core. Other times it's you
yeah,
like, at work, which is a different hat. If you
totally.
do like two other jobs, like it's different hats
Or like
there.
there's you if you're stressed, or you're if you're
Literally,
there's
like
there is you have
yeah,
different ways that you show up. Um,
exactly. And whatever way you show up to like, this podcast or like to whatever business or job that you have, like at the end of the day, it's not personal.
no,
Unless
but
you
it's
make it
great.
unless you're like literally attacking someone
And the
personally.
way that you
It's
help make it not be that issue is if you know that person, right? If you
correct.
know
Yeah.
somebody well enough to understand like something's going on, right? And you can speak
Yeah.
to it and you make a place that's a space that feels safe. That was something, and I have to be told, I didn't know how to make a safe space for Dan to actually talk about all of these things because I was just
That's
so
that's a
I
life
was
skill.
really ignorant. I honestly, I was really ignorant, and I didn't have enough perspective. Dan and I are very opposite, like very opposite.
Uh-huh.
In like when it comes to communication and feelings and our experiences, we're different people, but
Yeah.
I didn't know enough about anybody else's perspective or have been close enough to have to really like understand. So I
Dive into
was
that.
just a total asshole. Um, and like if you need to, and I didn't make a space that was safe for him. So, and that's a part of the hard thing at work too, is that when you're
Mm-hmm.
in a professional setting and you bring any of that stuff in, you don't feel like you don't people don't know you well enough outside of what you're doing for work, so you feel like you
Yeah.
can't show those things, you don't want it to look like you're vulnerable. It's very complicated. I don't understand how we all survive in this type of structure, but that is exactly why
Mm-hmm.
that's why Dan left the corporate world, and that's why we have the business that we have together, and why he is looking for he sense of community is super important to both of us. And when it comes to the
Mm-hmm.
business that we have and working with other people and bringing in our partners, we build relationships first, even with our
Yeah.
clients. And I'm the same way with BCA. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I work with dancers too, I spend so much time helping them heal from like the traumas of what they've experienced in their journey thus far, and working on mindset because it's the stuff that I didn't have and why I dealt with all the scary shit that I dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
But that communication directly affects whatever's going on in your head. And if you don't feel like you have a safe space to unwrap it or unravel all of it, you carry it all around in your head until it decides that it wants to, you know, set off fireworks. And then you're like, how am I supposed to do anything now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, literally, same instance from last week as that you did. I had a thought and then just left.
Yeah.
Literally. Mental illness at its prime. I
Yeah.
cannot remember, but whatever. Complex relationships. I can't
It's fine. It'll
remember
come back later.
shit.
You'll text me about it in like an
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the essence of this podcast, guys. Relationships, communication, and just
Mental illness.
do and the mental illness that gets in the
it's
way.
it's still lingering in the bottom
But
of
this
every
talks about, right? I
whatever.
think that we have such a prescriptive diagnostic definition for mental illness, and like having mental health issues is dealing with this stuff every day.
Yeah.
And like the roadblocks, honestly, it's not even like a roadblocks, because when I think roadblocks, I think like, oh, I can get out of my car and move that. It's like you know how when you like drive in all those games where like things pop up or smack you when
Yeah.
what is that game called that I was telling you that Dan got? The Fall Guys.
Oh, wait, Fall Guys.
It's like
Yeah.
that game, which is why that game makes me so anxious and I can't play it because I'm like, oh my god. But like it's like that. Life is like that, and dealing with your emotions feels like that, and that in essence is what mental health issues are. Like you
No
can't say
shit.
that you don't have to deal with mental health because mental health is that.
Yeah, like literally, like short-term memory loss is a real thing. Clearly, 2 seconds ago, I literally had a thought and just like left. I was like, okay, I don't remember what I was going to talk about, and not even that. I don't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. So like mental health,
Yeah.
mental illness, if you will.
Hamster memory. It's a huge thing. Oh God. Well, 2 years, man. I'm proud of us.
Yeah, for sure. This is a feat, honestly.
What do you
It's
think like
amazing.
16, 17-year-old us would say about doing this right now? I
In shortened
oh,
version, I think number one, holy shit, they're still friends. Number
oh yeah.
two, holy shit, they're still alive. Number three, they can talk. like
Yeah,
like
like who is that person?
like they can talk. Like those are probably the three things I would probably say.
Well, I definitely think all of that. I
Yeah.
think that oh God. I think that myself personally would go through that whole I feel like I'd be like super embarrassed and I'd be like, oh my like the same way that I feel like I look at my parents sometimes when they
Yeah.
do stuff. I'm like, oh shit. I would definitely feel that at first, but
Yeah.
I think that I, after getting over all of that, would be proud of myself
Hmm.
for doing what I couldn't do then and talking about the stuff that I really was dealing with
Yeah,
and the things
probably.
that I also feel like I was just too much in it and like
Hmm.
hormones and shit for like there to
Yeah,
be any
16, 17-year-old me would not even know how to be proud of myself. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
So
mm,
like that's even a foreign concept for that child.
mm. Well, I'm gonna believe it because that's what that's what old me now needs to think about how young me would see it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm proud of us, dude. I am proud of us.
Yeah, for sure. So here's to another 2 years.
Yeah, let's see where it gets us.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for being a part of this journey. We so appreciate it. I hope that you enjoy our outro music sound too now. But just remember that wherever you are now and wherever you want to be 2 years from now, you don't have to be afraid
Hmm.
to do more or be more. You deserve to live your best life and whatever that looks like for you in the next 2 years.
Okay, bye.